Hello again, everyone. Edwin Learnard back once again. In this YouTube astrological segment, I'm going to be talking about what I believe is the most predictable of the zodiac signs. And yes, this does apply and pertain to the sun, moon, and ascendant. Now, Aries could be a candidate for this, but given, Aries fire sign can be somewhat temperamental. They often will explode at the drop of the hat. I think they're the most volatile and hot-headed of the zodiac signs. They act with a lot of spontaneity too, even despite being very single-minded. They're very spontaneous. They're pioneering. They will start a lot of new things, but they don't always finish what they start. It just seems like to me, be hard-pressed to think they're the most predictable of zodiac signs, but they are predictable in terms of their I guess you could say their focus, their single-mindedness to some degree, but they don't. They may focus on some level, but they sometimes lack the persistence that some of the other signs have to follow through on things. So it's hard for me to say they're the most predictable. Now, Taurus would certainly be a viable candidate because Taurus is very stable and steady. They are known for their routine. They could be seen as downright monotonous. It could be, I see them the most fixed of the zodiac signs being fixed and earth. They're very hard to unbalance. When they got their mindset on something, that is basically it. I have Taurus rising. I should know something about this energy. So they're not, so I don't really see them. What I'm saying is I see them definitely as a viable candidate for being the most, as far as the most predictable zodiac signs. So again, they could be very predictable in their habit patterns. Now, the next sign I want to get to is Gemini. Well, Gemini, they're the opposite of Taurus. Gemini could be very mercurial and vacillating. They're one of the most unpredictable of the zodiac signs. Gemini is very contradictory in their nature. They could go one way one moment and then go one way the other way the next. It's really hard to see them being as fickle and changeable as they are as the most predictable of the signs. Gemini is often about intermittent connections. They will often come in and out of your life at their convenience. They don't feel like they're being malicious, but it can come across as that they just need that time to get away from people. But they have this subjective, objective thing about them. They get close one moment, they get too close, they drift away for a while, and then when it's time to get close again, they come back. So I don't see Gemini as being really the most predictable of the zodiac signs. Now, Cancer can be really, it's hard for me to say that they're the most predictable. Yeah, they're a creature of habit. I have very strong Cancer energy in my chart, including a Cancer sun. But Cancer, again, can be very emotional and temperamental. They're very susceptible to their environment, the mood, the moods. They have very strong mood swings. They are a sign that really, because of their moodiness, especially, they are one. They often will feel others' feelings, and they are ones. They are just it's just the changeability of the sign due to how they feel about things. Often it's attributed to. So for me, I don't think that they're the most predictable of the zodiac signs. Now going to Leo. Well, Leo certainly, is one that can be kind of, given that they are a fixed sign, but given that they're fire, they could be somewhat temperamental, and they're sometimes they could blow up off the handle and a little bit unexpectedly. They're not as easily provoked as Aries, I don't think, but they're not far behind. And the thing about Leo is they can have certain creativity and they have certain spontaneity, given that they are a fire sign. I think Leo will actually, they will sometimes unexpectedly spend extravagantly and splurge on items like all of a sudden, because it's just in their nature to do so. They might unexpectedly show a lot of generosity and magnanimous energy toward somebody. They are ones that they are, I mean, and being also very extroverted, the life of the party, so to speak. They are ones that will do certain things at a party that can keep people entertained. And sometimes you may not know what they're going to do. They're very creative. They can come up with ideas at the hat that you wouldn't even think of. There was, I remember a Forensic Files episode where there was a gentleman had a son in Leo, and he was like some forensics investigator and came up with a very astounding creative idea. He was trying to prove that somebody slipped and fell as opposed to actually being murdered and pushed down the stairs, and he was able to somehow simulate this by using some harness and some rope, and he was able to find the right size body to do so, and he was able to actually prove this way that this was actually a slip and fall to a as opposed to an actual homicide. So this was, I mean, it's just the fact that they can spontaneously come up with creative ideas. I don't see them as being the most predictable of the zodiac signs. So next sign to talk about is Virgo. Well, Virgo certainly can be a viable candidate because Virgo is known for their daily routine. They're known to be very notorious for being very punctual, very reliable. They are ones that are known to constantly be very reticent and humble. They are about good, proper, and scrupulous behavior. But remember that Virgo is a mutable sign. There can be a little changeability with Virgo. And Virgo, if they become insecure about something, they can unexpectedly begin to criticize others almost incessantly, almost compulsively. That is where their strong changeability can come, and sometimes Virgos will often make mountains out of molehills, so to speak. They can often be seen as those psychosomatic people, often maybe more so than the other signs, that they enlarge often with their actual situation, their problems might be, and really in this worrisome energy can make them somewhat changeable, and then all of a sudden this Virgo person that was very steady and stable may become agitated at someone at the drop of a hat due to the fact that this anxiety hits them, this anxious energy. So I don't see Virgo as being the most as far as the most predictable sign. Now going to Libra. Well, Libra certainly, I mean, they can be somewhat calculating, but they're an air, and being an air sign, they're ones that kind of go with, they're really, there's certain unpredictability about Libra. They're the ones that might not hear from for some time, but then they want to have their social get together with you. They'll often ingratiate themselves with groups, and in some cases a negative manifestation in order to build their social status. They're a little bit more, I mean, but at the same time, they often, given being an air sign, they have a certain unpredictability about them. It could be about who they may be socializing with. It could be connected with their relationships, certain things that might happen with them. If a relationship is not going well, it's getting overly mundane, or maybe I should say the word monotonous or tedious, they might unexpectedly drop the bombshells, figuratively speaking, and say, well, this isn't working, or I'm going to go seek other pastures, so to speak. So they have that certain unpredictability about them, and I don't see them as the most predictable of the zodiac signs. Now going to Scorpio. Well, Scorpio certainly can swing to extremes. I do see them as unequivocally the most extreme of the zodiac signs. Even though they're a fixed sign, they could be, one moment they could be that staunch, loyal, steadfast ally of yours, then all of a sudden, on a whim, I mean, if you do something that might hurt them, they could be very vindictive and vengeful, and that placid front that they showed you, all of a sudden, it's all this turbulent energy that was stored up just can be unleashed, and their swing can be very extreme. Don't get me wrong, being a strong fixed sign, they can be very intractable and intransigent, and have really very strong single-minded focus, and have a lot of emotional intensity and passion, whatever they do. But they are also, it's a sign for me it's hard for me to see them as being the most predictable of the zodiac signs. Now we're going to go to Sagittarius. Now, Sagittarius to me can't be the most predictable of the zodiac signs because Sagittarius mutable. They're very flighty and they're very restless. They're very adventurous. If they have a relationship or they have a friendship or have a connection that is overly drab, it becomes tedious or mundane or overly monotonous, overly regimented, they will often break away and they will say no way. I mean, they will just take off. Even if a country is becoming overly boring for them, they might take off at the drop of the hat and go they could be very transient. They could wind up going somewhere else and just leave on the drop of a hat, because Sagittarius is that nomad. They're really that restless wanderer. They're that happy meander of the zodiac. So for me to say that they're the most predictable, that would almost be blasphemous. Ironically enough, they could be the most religious of the signs. So hey, if it fits, hey, wear it, right? If the humor fits. But anyway, well, now going to Capricorn. Well, Capricorn, I mean, they could be seen as a viable candidate for the most predictable of the zodiac signs, because Capricorn is very steady. They're very stable. They're very consistent. There's usually not a lot of change in their behavior. I'll reveal at the end of the video and divulge whether they're the most predictable or not, but they're certainly a candidate. They're very single-minded, ambitious. They often are very focused, very strongly on their career goals. Capricorn can often become a specialist because they have this single-minded focus, but the fact that they're cardinal maybe make them not quite the most predictable of the zodiac signs, but I'll let you know at the end of the video. Now going to Aquarius. Well, Aquarius to me, I mean, they are a fixed sign. They have, in that sense, one might think, well, maybe they're the most predictable of the zodiac signs, but Aquarius can be actually a very erratic, sporadic energy, very unpredictable energy. They'll do the most outlandish things that a lot of other people will be very hesitant and reluctant to do so. They're often the nonconformists of the zodiac. They're the ones like I forget his name, Nick Walenda or something similar, that one that went over the tightrope over the Grand Canyon. Apparently there was no netting. Sun in Aquarius. They will do the things that are really very audacious, ones that others will not often do, no matter how bizarre, no matter how outlandish or even risk-taking it might be. And they could be the most unpredictable of the zodiac signs, so it's hard for me to say they're the most predictable. Now I'm going to go to the last sign of the zodiac, Pisces. Now Pisces, it's hard for me to say that they would be the most predictable, because Pisces is very malleable energy. They're very impressionable. They'll often mimic that behavior of others in their own environment. They are ones that can be easily influenced by others' behavior, I believe, given that they're very impressionable, and they're also very changeable. They're a mutable sign. I mean, the theory is, and I concur and subscribe to it as well, that they're the amalgamation of the previous 11 zodiac signs, so they are very changeable, actually can be very unpredictable. They can go one way, they could be going in more than one direction, it seems like, on issues and ideas, because they are very confused, often ambivalent and indecisive. So to me, it makes me think that they're not the most predictable, and their behavior is often predicated on who they're around, unfortunately, more so than the other zodiac signs. Now, I'm going to reveal who I think, the sign I think is the most predictable, and I think it's unequivocally Taurus. I have a Taurus rising at 22 degrees, critical degree, more pronounced with me. People can see me very readily on the first impression, of course, being the Ascendant, that I'm very unwavering and intransigent as far as my routine, my daily habits, what I do day to day. Some of that's attributed to my Saturn conjunct the Ascendant, but that being said, it's also having a persistent Taurus. Taurus is, I think, the most persistent of the zodiac signs. They will do things for the longest periods, I think more so than other signs on average, that would daunt those other zodiac signs. They go with an endurance and staying power, I think, that is unmatched. And they're also, they're just completely very predictable in their habit patterns. It's also, I think, the most fixed of the zodiac signs, given that they are, it's an earth and fixed sign. They're very unwavering. They're set in stone. Once a decision is made with Taurus, they will not budge. They are very predictable in terms of not changing their mind, and in terms of their trustworthiness and their reliability as a friend, and their loyalty and steadfastness. Those are some things you could count on with Taurus. When Taurus is generally, I think they're one of the less appreciated of the zodiac signs, because Taurus is very basic energy. They're just very loyal, steadfast, trustworthy. They could be counted on when others will let you down. Taurus is often not appreciated until they're actually gone, and when they're missed, that's when people know what they had with Taurus. Taurus will sometimes get the last laugh by even leaving a relationship that was detrimental to them after they've reached their point of endurance, and that's when people would understand what Taurus is about. Taurus is about staying power and constancy, again being the most fixed sign, I think, unequivocally, irrebuttably, given that they are it is a fixed sign and an earth sign. They are set in stone. With whatever it is they do, they very rarely will go back on it or go back on their word. They are very predictable in that sense as well. They are, I do believe, the most predictable of the zodiac signs. Anyway, people, that'll conclude this YouTube astrological segment, and until next time, people, Edwin Learnard saying stay well.